Hi, so I wanted to give you a quick breakdown of what's happening behind the scenes when I create a newsletter. Creating a newsletter for me has been a great and rewarding experience. Hitting publish every week is great accountability to make sure that I improve with my writing. So I wanted to break down and show you actually how I get it done. So the first step is I'll come across an interesting blog post, whether through email, newsletter, somebody talking about it, whatever. So I came across this. And usually I'll come across articles, but I'll be doing something else. So I don't want to dive in immediately. So I'll click this button over here and I'll save it to Instapaper. And what this does is it allows me to read it later sometime when I have time. So usually in the evening, I'll go through my Instapaper and just read stuff that I found interesting that day. So I have it here. It's nicely formatted so I can read. And I read this whole article and I go through it highlighting the stuff that's interesting or resonate that resonates with me. So you could see here that I only really highlighted one thing, and that's because I really try to make sure that I'm only pulling out the stuff that's very personal, that's very useful for me, because that is the sort of stuff that's going to end up in the work that I create. I want to really hone in on what's interesting. So I highlighted this, and I use an app called Readwise, which basically syncs this to Evernote, which is really cool. So this will show up in my Evernote inbox. And here it is. This is the article. This is a link to the original content. And I went, while I was just looking at this, I kind of progressively summarized it, which basically means that I bolded and highlighted the stuff that is most important, interesting to me. So this idea of forget the noun and do the verb is something that's very, very useful to me. What I'll do is when I'm working on a project, I'll copy this whole thing and I'll go over to Notion. Notion is where I have all my projects. It's what I use to manage my projects. And for newsletters specifically, I created this newsletter tracker, which is really, really cool. It's basically a way for me to standardize the system of creating a newsletter. There's a lot of things that I want to keep in mind that I can't always keep in my first brain, so it goes in the tracker in my second brain. So you can see here, this page is a newsletter template that I've created. This is generally what it looks like. And if I go back here and I click this button, I create one of these. So for this walkthrough, I had this here, I created this, I put this here, and I'm going to open now and show you what the contents of this are. So you see here, it says Lazy Sundays number 6. It's going to be the 6th newsletter that I send. This is a link to my newsletter, and I put the idea here. So I already did that. You can see ideas and inspiration throughout kind of the week, throughout whenever I have interesting ideas that come up. I either, capture it with an app called Drafts. So I either write it out on my iPhone in Drafts, or I have a cool app. I have a cool like watch app from Drafts, and I can just click that and speak into it, and it converts what I say to text. And both of those things, wherever it goes in Drafts, it ends up in my Evernote inbox. And from there, like I just showed you, I can put it here. So everything eventually gets captured by Evernote. All that stuff when I'm working on a project goes here. So it's all kind of in one nice, neat package. And the main reason I like this so much is because of this stuff. So this is what I work on. So when I am working on a newsletter, I don't do the whole newsletter all in one go. I use what Tiago Forte in Building a Second Brain calls intermediate packets, which is basically small little manageable packets that I can do in very short amount of time. And the reason that's important is because you need to know what you did last time, so you don't have the extra legwork necessary the next time to kind of decode what you did, to like get in the right mood, all those sorts of things. You want to make it as easy as possible for your future self so that your future self can just jump in immediately and go into flow. So you could see here that the first thing I do is write kind of a crappy shitty first draft. And then I make a readable second, and so on and so forth. Inside of all these things, there's a checklist. These are things that people have told me in the past or feedback I've gotten that I want to make sure that I learn. So for example, in the past, I've realized that I use a lot of crutch words. You might have heard some of these crutch words already in the call, but I use stuff like just that, I think, when I'm speaking. So I go through this and I check this off. I'll, just do this whole thing and because of the feedback, I know this is very personal. This is feedback that's specific to me. This is the stuff that I need to focus on specifically to make it readable. And if you go through other stages, there are other things like that. So in the fun third, I have this sentence that I love asking myself. If you force somebody to stop now, how much would they pay you to keep going? So I go through all these things, go through all these stages, and then, I use this link right here, this this was already up already. This links to that newsletter I'm working on. My stages that are listed here, and it'll be done. I'll publish. So this is the most important part for me. After I publish, I do a post-game analysis. I do kind of like quick admin things, which is basically like making sure the project is complete. I review the project notes here. I make sure that, I've used these, I've written about these. If not, they can be used in future newsletters, they can be used in future thoughts and systems, and they can exist in my resources. So I always have access to this. So there's a lot of things you could do to make sure that these stay or these are processed in some way. You don't want to basically lose the work that you do. Even if it doesn't end up in this specific newsletter, it could end up in some other future project or some other habit or system. So I do that, and that's very important. But the interesting thing is I do a post-mortem, and then I click on this link. And this link basically is all the feedback, all the notes, all the things I've learned while making this newsletter. And usually it's just one or two things, but as I do more newsletters, as I write more essays, this same link is in all those templates. So I will basically, you can see this is some film stuff here, but I haven't edited this for the walkthrough, but you can basically create notes and then you'll start to see patterns. And then as you start to see patterns, you can add them to the stages here that exist. So you can add them to all these stages that I listed out. And that's how you make sure that you're learning every time. And one last thing that I wanted to talk about is, did you see how long it took me to click all the way and go to this Lazy Sundays number 6? You don't want that. You want your projects to be super accessible. You want it to be easy to find them. You want it to be easy to transfer. You want to make sure that there's very little friction between you capturing and having all these ideas and you creating something. So I want to spend as much time as I can in flow and creation and not spend that much time, doing all this stuff and being on Notion and being on Evernote. So what I did is Tiago Forte basically has a project areas resources archive system. He calls it Para. You can look on his blog for more information, but basically I have a section called projects, and I list out all the names of my projects with the desired outcomes, why I'm doing it, basically the deadline, priority, status. And here, as you can see already, in this database, if you click at, you can link to whatever you want. So here, I've linked to the thing we were talking about. And then what I do is I favorite this and it shows up right here. So all the main high priority projects that I am working on, I can get a glance of what's on my plate right here through the project section. Or if I want to just jump right into some project that I'm working on, I can click right here and bam, we're already there. So I really love this because it's a very easy way for me to get things done, but at the same time, it's a system I can trust. It's a system that learns. It's something where it's very personalized to me, and I know, that this petri dish that I've created is going to sustain, create inspiration and beauty and all those stuff on the page. I really want to focus on becoming a better writer. So this is an easy system that doesn't take me that much time that really gets me there. That's why I love it. So I hope you like this kind of behind the stage, showing you how this newsletter is made. And if you like this, if you have any questions, please let me know. I can also talk about how I create essays, for example, or other stuff. Notion is a very powerful tool, and all the principles that underlie this and the main ideas are from Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain class. So if you haven't taken that class, I highly recommend it. I've done a lot of productivity stuff, read a lot of self-help books, and there's a lot of those ideas and my original ideas that go into this, but a majority of this is just what Tiago Forte talks about. So I highly recommend it. So I really hope that was helpful, and let me know what you think.